showcasing speeds in excess of 290 miles an hour and traveling the quarter mile in less than 5 seconds. Championship drag racing from the NHRA. There's over $18 million up for grabs in the NHRA Winston Drag Racing Series held across the United States and Canada. The most recent stop on the tour was Sears Point International Raceway in the wine country near San Francisco, where the second annual running of the California Nationals was one of the most excitement-packed events this season. There, Frank Bradley captured his first Top Fuel title since the 1984 Summer Nationals, defeating Joe Amato, who broke during the final round. Don Prudhomme absolutely dominated funny car action, bringing to 38 his career victory count. And in Pro Stock, Bob Glidden continued his march to an unprecedented 10th Winston title, extending his points lead and posting his 74th career win. Now the 19-event tour is visiting Seattle International Raceway and the second annual Performance Corners Seafair Nationals. Hello, everybody. I'm Dave McClelland, and it seems like only yesterday that we watched Bob Glidden win his 50th event title at the 1986 Chief Nationals at the Texas Motorplex near Dallas, Texas. But things are different here at Seattle. Bob Glidden did not qualify number one. We don't see the dominance. You qualified in the 5th spot. Can you win your 75th title here?
Dave, that's a good question. We've really struggled at this racetrack for some reason. We really don't know why. And all the other cars have picked up and are running quite well. We've been kind of playing the odds and taking some chances. We're going to have to run well or we won't get by this round.
Bob, best of luck to you.
Thanks a lot, Dave.
The other big story here at the Performance Corner Seafair Nationals is in Top Fuel. For more on that, here's my good friend Steve Evans.
David, these Seattle drag racing fans know a good story when they see one. Take a look at the tremendous crowd around Gary Ormsby's pit area. You'll find, likewise, a large crowd around Joe Amato's pits on the other side. Now, the reasons are these. Both teams are making spectacular comebacks in the Top Fuel ranks because of problems that set in 1 week ago at the California National Sears Point Raceway in Northern California. First of all, let's deal with Gary Ormsby. In round number 1, he appeared to be headed to victory when suddenly the wing came off the rear of the car. With no down pressure, the tires started to smoke. The engine overwhelmed, the blower popped, and Ormsby, for the first time in his 25-year career, was upside down and into the fence. He was A-OK. The car was junk. Crew Chief Lee Beard looked at their available race cars, didn't see anything he liked, and bought a used car from Larry Minor Racing in Southern California that Frank Hawley drove earlier this year. Now, it is similar enough to the car they crashed that it has responded to their combination with a 5.03 elapsed time in round 1 earlier today. The only other car to run 5.03 has been Joe Amato, the other comeback story. Now, Amato did not crash at Sears Point, but he might as well have. You can't nuke a Top Fuel dragster twice in one day and expect it to survive. First of all, a violent engine explosion around 1 at the finish line, so bad the crankshaft fell off the bottom. Then in the final round against Frank Bradley, another kaboomer that ruined the left side of the car. Amato called the chassis builder Al Swindle in Tacoma, Washington, said, "How's my new car coming?" Swindle said, "It's in the box ready to be shipped." He said, "Don't call UPS. I'll be there in about 18 hours. They worked well every night, all night, got that car together, and they are the cars to beat. Again, it is Joe Amato and Gary Ormsby. David?
Steve will be up with round number 2 of Top Fuel Racing in just a few moments. But right now, let's go to Pro Stock Eliminator and round number 2 action. These are the factory hot rods. 500 cubic inch engines. They run on racing gasoline rather than a blend of nitromethane, as we'll see in a little bit from our Top Fuel dragsters and funny cars. These cars weigh 2,350 pounds with the driver on board. Truly a very sophisticated racing machine. Here's the AC Delco Oldsmobile of Warren Johnson. Alongside of him, the Atco Special. It's a Chevy Beretta from Yuma, Arizona, driven by Gordy Rivera. This marks one of the first times this season that Rivera has made the 16-car field. He qualified 14th and beat Frank Iaconio in the first round. His competition, WJ Warren Johnson, was the number 10 qualifier. He upset the number 2 car, Joe Lavone Jr., in first round racing. The cars will pull forward into the staging beams, those electronic beams across the starting line. When the lights on the Christmas tree signify they're ready, starter Buster Couch throws the switch for a green light. An even race the half track, and Warren Johnson pulls ahead at the finish line, very close. 7.42 seconds, 186 miles an hour. Rivera just a heartbeat behind at 7:43. As we look at this run again in slow motion, you see the advantage, or the whole shot, gained off the starting line by WJ. But even after giving away that advantage, Gordy Rivera was able to remain competitive to half track. It was in the last eighth of a mile that Johnson pulled ahead for the victory. Let's go to the far end and Steve Evans.
Your 42 to his 43. That's pro stock racing.
That's real racing.
What do you think? The racetrack, the conditions, can you win this thing?
Sure we can, Steve. You know that.
Yeah, I just thought I'd ask.
Well, Steve, a guy named Bob Glidden may have something to say about that. The 1989 NHRA Performance Corner Seafair Nationals is being brought to you by Fram, Bendix Autolite, all quality products of Allied Automotive, and by Firestone. Watch us, we're on the move. And by Budweiser, for all you do, this Bud's for you. Back with more Pro Stock Racing in just a moment.
To Joe Amato, this isn't a quarter mile of road. To him, it's a battlefield. And to prepare for the fight, Joe's crew chief, Tim Richards, uses Fram oil filters that can stand up to engine-killing dirt and grit. Fram oil filters, for when the going gets tough.
Some questions remain unanswered about the new Castrol Special of Gary Ormsby. Yes, it qualified well. Yes, it won its first round race. But does it have the consistency the old car had in carrying Ormsby to 4 event titles thus far this season? We'll find out some answers in a few moments when we get to Top Fuel. Right now, we continue with round number 2 of Pro Stock Racing at the Performance Corner Seafair Nationals. Here is the Oldsmobile, driven by Larry Morgan. Alongside of him is the Pontiac of Butch Leal. This category, above all, is truly a battle between makes. Pontiac against Oldsmobile, as in this case. Ford, Chevrolet, Dodge, they're all there. Morgan qualified very well in the number 4 spot and beat Reed Wisden in round number 1, while his opponent, Butch Leal, qualified number 8 and defeated Jerry Ekman in the first round of racing. The burnout procedure completed to heat the tires to get the traction necessary. The 2 cars and drivers now pulling up into the staging beam. The 2 men concentrating on getting a good start. And it's a green light for both drivers. They're past the 8th mile, headed to the finish, and Butch Leal by a car length moves the AC Delco Pontiac into round number 3. 7.40, his speed 186 miles an hour. As we go back again in replay, you can see Butch Leal got almost 0.03 of a second advantage at the green light. The times indicated by a reaction timer, telling us how long it takes the driver to react to the green light. That 0.03, you can see it nearly a car length at the halfway point. And at the finish line, Leal also had a performance advantage, some 0.03 of a second over Larry Morgan. Let's go to Steve with Butch Leal.
Well, the signs of frustration are starting to leave the face of Butch Leal. A 7:40.
Yeah, getting a little better, Steve. That was a pretty good run there, and just fortunate to outrun Larry. He's been running awful good today, and I thought, well, we'd loosen the clutch up a little bit. It got hotter, and looked like it worked. The guys back at the trailer's doing a real good job. And
nice little hole shot, too.
Did it leave on him a little? Yeah, that's good. I got it back. Last 3 or 4 weeks, we've been messing with a different clutch, and we've changed and got my reactions back, so I feel real good about it.
See you in the semi.
Thank you very much.
Steve, little changes can mean so much. Let's take a ride with Bob Glidden on a burnout in Pro Stock. You say this doesn't look like your Ford Pro? Well, I can understand that. Look at the roll cage, for one thing, around Bob Glidden. That's to protect him. His right hand operating all those levers. That's the shifter mechanism control as he backs up after the burnout to race against Darrell Alderman, one of the few people to beat Bob Glidden in a heads-up race this year. Alderman qualified here in the number 9 spot at a 7:38. In round number 1, he raced the number 1 qualifier, Don Beverly. Beverly at the wheel of the Crown Petroleum Oldsmobile was in the near lane. Alderman was in the far lane. This was the first round of racing today, and Darrell put a whole shot on him and held on for the win at 7.39 second elapsed time. That served notice to Glidden that Alderman is definitely one to be reckoned with here at the Seafair Nationals. Glidden, in his first round race that we saw earlier against Gary Herman, had only 0.02 of a second advantage. He's having his share of problems today, and that could prove beneficial for Alderman, who defeated Bob in the semifinals at the Gator Nationals, where Darrell went on to take the title. These are the only 2 competitive examples of Ford and Dodge in competition in Pro Stock racing. And Glidden leads the starting line into high gear. And Alderman crosses the line first, but he left the starting line first, way ahead of the green light, and was disqualified with a red light start. Bob Glidden wins and goes into the semifinals. Watch Alderman, the X-side edge Dodge, how quick he moves ahead of Glidden. A red light showing in that lane, and he is out of competition. Bruce Allen and Kenny Koretsky bring a pair of Chevrolet Berettas to the line, the final 2 cars in the quarterfinals of competition. Let's go to Steve with Bob Glidden.
Well, that one was won, Bob, before you ever left the starting line. He red-lighted, but you still pounded him again with a 7.40.
Well, I saw his red light. You know, we needed to make as good a run as we can. Try to get lane choice for the next round. I'm sure we have to run Bruce.
Okay, thank you, Bob. In fact, Bruce Allen is coming up. Right, David?
Right you are, Steve. And Kenny Koretsky may have something to say about Bob Glidden's assumption. He beat Mark Powick in the first round from his number 15 qualifying spot. That earned him the right to race Bruce Allen, the number 3 qualifier, who beat Morris Johnson Jr. in his first round race. This is a pair of nearly identical Chevrolet Berettas. Allen has been the quality Chevrolet all year long. He's won 3 national event titles, but Koretsky in the Super Shop Special has had his share of round victories, yet to win an NHRA national event. A big lead for Allen going into the finish line. He now heads to the semifinals, and Bob Glidden's prediction is correct. Bruce Allen will be his competition, and Allen, by virtue of the 7:37 winning time, will have the choice of lanes. This will be one of those classic Ford versus Chevrolet battles. The other pair in the semifinals, Warren Johnson and his Oldsmobile against Butch Leal, and Leal has the choice of lanes there.
Bruce Allen has to face Bob Glidden in the semifinal round, but you can put him wherever you want to on the starting line. Your 7:37 is lane choice.
That was an awful good run there we made. That was about as good as we can do out there, and kind of looking forward to running Bob this time. We've raced a few times, and right now would be a good time to get it on again.
You're going to get your wish.
Hope so.
A rather pensive Bruce Allen as he heads back into the pits. Coming into the staging lanes, the brand new car of Joe Amato. He races Mike Brotherton in round number 2 of Top Fuel, coming up next at the Seafair Nationals. Back at the 2nd annual Performance Corner Seafair Nationals at Seattle International Raceway. It is time for round number 2 of Top Fuel Eliminator. Here is Dennis Forssell getting ready to do his burnout. He'll be racing against Frank Cook. From this point, both cars will roll forward into a puddle of water. They'll get the tires wet, then they stand on the throttle. Here's Frank Cook, and now Dennis Purcell. When those huge 17-inch wide tires get to spinning, it is the ultimate in burning rubber, getting the tires as hot and as clean as possible to glue the some 4,000 horsepower available to each driver to the ground. This record-shattering crowd is gathered here in the woods near Kent, Washington, under near-perfect weather conditions to watch some incredibly close racing. Frank Cook, driving the Gunite Express car, from his number 4 qualifying spot, beat Jack Ostrander in round 1, while Dennis Purcell, the number 8 qualifier, beat Robert Reel in his first round confrontation. It was just 7 days ago that Purcell, in the near lane against Joe Amato, performed one of the most brilliant driving jobs under duress that we have ever watched. The engine exploded, the tire blew, and Purcell kept the car away from Joe Amato. Dennis brought the car to a safe stop, and after this near disaster in qualifying, the crew rebuilt the car, and he made the first round of competition the next day. Now, at Seattle, it is round number 2. Dennis Purcell is racing against Frank Cook. The simpatico beer car of Dennis Purcell is one of those state-of-the-art vehicles, 300-inch wheelbase. Look at Frank Cook's car in the near lane. It's one of the shorties. It's an older car, but still performing well. Purcell has to shut off, and Frank Cook goes into the semis with an incredible 5.09 second elapsed time. His speed, 276 miles an hour. That time certainly keeping pace with his qualifying run of a 5:06 and his first round time of 5:07. Here is Shirley Muldowney, the driver of the Performance Automotive Wholesale Special, against the semi-new car of Gary Ormsby. Along with the stories of Ormsby and Amato rebuilding their cars for this race, the other story out of Seattle is Shirley Muldowney. She set top speed of the meet in qualifying at over 287 miles an hour, indicating to Ormsby that he better have plenty of power at the finish line because Shirley could outrun him. Steve's with Frank Cook.
Is this car more difficult to drive? It's old, it's got a short wheelbase. Are you faced with a bigger challenge than, say, an Amato and Ormsby?
I don't know. I've never had one of those nice long new cars.
And another 5.0. The consistency, that's what it's going to take to put you in the winner's circle.
Yeah. As long as we got the Settles and my guys over there, we're going to be all right. We're going to be tough to beat.
Indeed they will. What a story this thing is.
How true it is, Steve. Frank Cook, along with his crew chief Dave Settles, bringing every bit of performance out of that, what some folks consider to be an outdated design. Here's a state-of-the-art car. Gary Ormsby, we talked earlier about his consistency. In qualifying, Gary Ormsby ran a 5:05. In the first round of competition, he defeated Darrell Gwynn with a 5:04, improving slightly. Shirley Muldowney qualified 7th with a 5:12 and beat Gary back in the first round. Shirley is giving away more than 1/10 of a second in performance based upon first round times. She beat Beck with a 5:18. She's going to need a tremendous starting line advantage to be able to keep pace with the thus far very consistent car of Ormsby. Into the staging beams. Ormsby noted, though, for his reaction time off the starting line. And it's nearly identical. And at the finish line by just a few feet, Gary Ormsby pulls off the win. His elapsed time of 5:11 at over 280 miles an hour. Shirley Muldowney had a 5:14. Let's look again. While the start appeared to be absolutely equal between the two drivers, Shirley actually had 0.04 of a second advantage off the starting line, a very slight lead. But she was unable to hold it. As they neared the finish line, Ormsby pulled ahead to take the win. Another of the very close races here at Seattle. Steve?
I don't think I have to tell Gary Ormsby that Shirley Muldowney just gave him one of his toughest races of the year. Wow.
Hey, that was plenty close. See, I saw that pink car beside me all the way down there.
You know, 5:11.
Yeah, I fell off a little bit that time, huh?
Well, maybe the racetrack. Tell me about driving this car compared to the one you crashed.
Well, it's a lot of difference in this car, Steve. I'm starting to get a little bit more used to it, but that other car was like an old shoe, you know? And this car, I sat different in it, and we've made a lot of adjustments on the levers and everything for it to make it easier for me, and I'm starting to get a little easier in it, but it's definitely different than what I had before.
Well, it may be a different car, but the same result. Gary Ormsby heads for the semifinals.
And continues to maintain his lead in the Winston points chase for Top Fuel. Steve, back to you.
You know, we cannot let this lady get away without saying goodbye on this bright day in Seattle, because she just gave Gary Ormsby maybe his toughest race of the whole year. He thought you had him.
I thought I had him, too. I think he got spanked on the starting line.
Indeed.
Yeah, he did get spanked on the starting line.
And you ran a 5:14. That's a good number. This car is coming around.
I think it may have dropped a cylinder, Steve. I don't know. It's been kind of, the fire's going out in one hole. We've been having that problem all weekend, but I was hoping I could do something for LaHaye.
I'll tell you what, look out for this lady, the final third of this season. A new track speed record, 287.
Not too bad.
Shirley wishing she could have stopped Ormsby in an effort to help Dick LaHaye win his second Winston title. At the second annual Performance Corner Seafair Nationals, I'm Dave McClelland, along with Steve Evans. And Castrol Racing Director John Gardella has a big wave for the Force family. Wife Lori and kids Courtney and Brittany looking on, cheering their dad in competition in Funny Car Eliminator. We'll be getting to that in just a few moments. Now on the starting line, continuing in round number 2 of Top Fuel. Mike Brotherton out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Williams Telecommunications Group dragster, making its best showing in several races. Brotherton qualified in the number 13 spot and beat Connie Coletta in round number 1. His competition, the number 1 qualifier, Joe Amato. He beat Eddie Hill in his first round race. It was in qualifying here in Seattle that near disaster struck Joe Amato. As he neared the finish line, it was almost a replay of the Gary Ormsby incident. The wing came off the car. But for Amato, he was shutting the car down and had deployed the parachute at the instant the wing came off. Thus, he avoided what could have been a disaster with this brand new car. Now he brings the TRW special to the line to face Mike Brotherton. Amato definitely has the performance advantage as they are in and staged. Driving away at the finish line, Amato records a 5.10 second elapsed time. His speed, 278 miles an hour. Back at the starting line, the next pair running. This is Dick LaHaye, the man that is chasing Gary Ormsby for the points championship and the share of the $1 million Winston postseason payout. LaHaye is racing our most recent winner. This is Frank Bradley, now hailing out of Santa Rosa, California. Thus far, a great season for Bradley, qualifying number 1 at 3 separate races and winning 1. Steve?
Well, the new car may not be very pretty yet, but it sure is quick, Joe. A 5:10.
Well, that's good for lane choice, Steve. That could be important.
And maybe all this racetrack is going to hold here in the heat of the day.
Well, you don't want to get greedy, you know, just want to get the win late and go to the next round, and we're going to have a serious one now.
I asked Gary Ormsby how he felt in his new used car. He said not comfortable completely yet. How about you in this car?
No, this car is driving like a Rolls Royce. It just goes straight down through there. You know, we had a little incident with the wing blowing off the other day, but that was fatigue parts. But Al Swindle built us a real race car here.
As always, he's one of the best. Joe Amato, one of the best also to the semis.
Amato, currently 3rd in the Winston standings, is the reigning Top Fuel champion. Using the directions of his daughter, Kim, who serves as crew chief on the car, she's out in front of the Miller High Life Special. LaHaye is very careful to back into the tracks that he laid down doing the Smoky Burnout. LaHaye qualified number 6 at a 5:06, beat Gordy Bonin in the first round, while Frank Bradley was the number 2 qualifier with a great 5:05. He beat Laurie Johns in his first round race. Bradley in the far lane in the Enco Agriculture Services entry watched his opportunity for lane choice go away by 1/100th of a second as Dick LaHaye had a 5:11 in the first round. Into the staging beam and a good start. And Kim LaHaye celebrates her dad's victory a 5.10 second elapsed time and 282 miles an hour. An incredible quarterfinal round of competition. The winner's times range from a 5:09 to a 5:11. Frank Cook has the lane choice over Dick LaHaye in the semifinals, and Joe Amato has the choice of lanes over Gary Ormsby. What a battle. Steve?
Well, David, Dick LaHaye, being in the last pair, sat in the staging lanes watching that scoreboard, seeing the 09, the 10, the 11. You knew what you had to do, and you did it at 10.
We got lucky again, I guess, Steve. You know, the track is a little tricky out there.
Tricky in what way?
Well, the sun beating on it and so forth, and it's getting a lot of rubber on it. And a lot of runs on this racetrack. You know, there's a lot of race cars here, and we just have to be very cautious and tiptoe down this thing.
Can you believe that the spread between the semifinals is 2/100ths of a second?
Yeah, and when you come to the finals, I bet it's going to be closer yet.
Just maybe.
Steve, lane choice could prove to be a strong factor in the semifinals, and Dick LaHaye does not have it. His competition, Frank Cook, does. Rusty and Billy Glidden getting the Ford ready for the race of the day against the Chevy of Bruce Allen, coming up later in Pro Stock at the Seafair National. Back at the second annual Performance Corners Seafair Nationals at Seattle International Raceway, the Oldsmobile engine of Warren Johnson getting some attention as they prepare that cutlass for round number 3 of Pro Stock Racing. That'll be coming up in a few moments. Right now, we're into the semifinals of Funny Car Eliminator. Here's the dominant race car on the circuit this season. This is Bruce Larson. The Century TAC Engages Oldsmobile has been in the winner's circle 3 times thus far this year. Here at the Seafair Nationals, Larson qualified number 1, defeating Scott Coletta in the first round. In the second round, he raced against Gary Densham, who was the number 13 qualifier, and defeated Mike Dunn in round number 1. Larson against Densham in round 2 racing saw Densham go up in smoke, and Larson streaked down the quarter mile to a 5.35 second elapsed time. His speed was 270 miles an hour. That win moved him to the semifinals to race the number 3 qualifier, Jim White, who beat Tony McCollum in round 1, and in round 2 raced against Jim Murphy. It was in that second round race that White had problems with the Hawaiian Punch special of Roland Leong. Roland and the crew were unable to get the car prepared in the allotted time for the race against Larson. Thus, Bruce gets the break of the day as he has a single here in the semifinal round. Larson now has a choice. He can either just idle the car through, making an easy run and sparing the parts, or he can stand on it and try for lane choice. He's on it. More incredible consistency from Larson. A 5:37 elapsed time. He had a 5:31 in qualifying, another 5:31 in the first round, a 5:35 in the second round, and now a 5:37 to put him into the finals. Here is Don Prudhomme. The Skoal Bandit Pontiac is the quickest funny car in the world. Earlier this season, he went a 5:19. Here he qualified with a 5:33. He is racing in the semifinals, the reigning Winston champion, Kenny Bernstein in the Budweiser King. What a treat for these fans. Each of these drivers has won 4 consecutive championships. Prudhomme's coming from 75 through 78, and exactly 10 years later, Kenny Bernstein duplicating the effort. In the first round here at Seattle, Kenny Bernstein beat Art Hendy. That moved him to round number 2, where he raced R.C. Sherman, who had beaten Mark Oswald in the first round. Bernstein won the race over Sherman, but it was a costly victory. Severe engine damage was suffered, and the crew, headed by Dale Armstrong, manhandled a brand new racing Hemi between the rails to get it ready for this semifinal race against Don Prudhomme. Let's look at the old engine block and see what happened. Here's the good side of the motor. See, the gasket's still in place. On the other side, the gasket failed, allowing the flame from the combustion chamber to reach the aluminum of the block, and it melted. Bernstein's semifinal opponent, Don Prudhomme, qualified second and beat Tom Hoover in the first round. His second round competitor, John Force, was the number 6 qualifier. He beat Richard Hartman in the first round. Oh, what a view in the Castrol GTX Oldsmobile of John Force. He took us for a ride in this second round race against Bruno. You have absolutely the same view that John Force does sitting inside the car. He lost traction. The smoke came inside, and Bruno streaked across the finish line to take a win at 5.38 seconds. His speed was 268 miles an hour. That brings us now to the semifinal round where Bruno and Bernstein square off. Bernstein is currently the number 2 man in the Winston Chase, coming into this event some 600 points behind Bruce Larson. Bruno is trying to move up. Winner a week ago at Sears Point. He has moved into the number 4 spot right behind Mark Oswald. The unknown quantity in this race is the performance potential of Bernstein. Remember, he's got a brand new engine to square off against Bruno. And handily, Kenny Bernstein moves into the finals. 5:34 at 2:76 will give him the lane choice in the final round against Bruce Larson as he attempts to make a move in his quest for a 5th consecutive championship. Larson against Bernstein in the funny car finals. In the top fuel pit area, crewman Tom Cattleman is underneath Dick LaHaye's car doing work on the bottom end of that 4,000 horsepower racing engine as Kim LaHaye makes some adjustments to the clutch. Let's go to the far end of the track where Steve Evans is with Kenny Bernstein.
You had 200s right off the starting line, Kenny. You ran a 5:37. Incredible. That's great.
Well, it's just one of those days, you know. It was real close on the start line. I know Don's been really quick on the lights all weekend. You got to stay right with him. Like I said, this pulls a lot out of you, but really the car mechanically has to be sound, and that goes back to Dale and the entire crew.
You know, you don't mind changing engines if you can use the same fuel system, blower, clutch.
Yeah, well, that's basically what we did. We just changed the short block. We use the same clutch, same blower, same injector, same fuel system, fuel pumps, everything else. So you're really not going from bad to worse. You're actually going probably to the same thing, just with different programs on the inside and the rods and pistons.
Great job.
Thanks, appreciate it.
More semifinal action, this time in Pro Stock Racing, coming up next.
If you're a member of the National High Rod Association and faithfully read your National Dragster every week like I do, you know, you'll often find pictures in here of beautiful street rods. Why not? That's kind of where drag racing came from. How about this one I found here at SIR? 34 Ford Phaeton. And it belongs to an old friend, Jim Green, who was the 1973 NHRA Funny Car World Champion along with his partner Frank Hall. Now, he no longer drag races, but he maintains his membership in NHRA because you can learn a lot about street rods from the latest drag racing technology. This is a flip-top 34 Ford Phaeton. And take a look at the power plant. It's a single overhead cam Ford racing engine, much like Don Prudhomme and Connie Coletta used to run years ago. The blower, an 871 GMC off of one of the old Green Elephant funny cars. All in all, it is just a masterpiece. And you know, you too can learn an awful lot about drag racing and occasionally even street rods by being a member of NHRA, receiving National Dragster, and all of the other benefits. And if you call this number now, they'll throw in a copy of the multi-award winning home video, Decade of Thrills. So, become part of the world's largest motorsports sanctioning body.
We're in the semifinal round of Pro Stock Eliminator alongside Bob Glidden inside the Ford Pro. Glidden has been put in this lane of the racetrack by the other half of the Pro Stock race of the day. That is Bruce Allen at the wheel of the Levi Garrett Chevy Beretta. Allen had a quicker elapsed time in the quarterfinals. That gave him lane choice. The 500 cubic inch motors coming up to 9,000 RPM, and a great start for both drivers. Bruce Allen pulls it out in the last few feet, and Allen goes into the finals. A 7:37 at 186 miles an hour lays away Bob Glidden's 7:42. Watch again at the start. Identical reaction time for both drivers. It is absolutely equal at this point. Then as they headed down track, the Chevrolet began to pull ever so slowly ahead of the Ford until at the finish line, 1,320 feet away from the start, the Chevrolet had a half a car length margin of victory.
You left right together. Just the perfect pro stock race.
I'm sure it was exciting. It always is when we race. Bob's a good competitor. He's always tough to beat. I haven't beat him in a long time, so it feels great.
Bruce joins a very elite group. Those people that have beat Bob Glidden in a straight-up race this season.
It's been a while, hasn't it?
The remaining two cars in this semifinal round of pro stock. It is the Pontiac of Butch Leal against the Oldsmobile of Warren Johnson. The winner here goes into the finals to race Bruce Allen. Right now, let's go back to Steve.
Bob Glidden out of the car with a big smile. That was a classic pro stock race. Just power. No advantage off the starting line to either one of you.
It was a good race. We never did get it together here, Steve. I don't know why. I don't know how we could come from Sonoma to here and run so poorly. They did a great job. Bruce has done a good job all year, and they deserve to win.
You told me earlier you changed everything on the car but the driver, and we know that's not the problem.
Well, I don't know about that, Steve. Sometimes I wonder, but you know, you can't win them all. It was a great race.
That 75th will probably still come this season. Let's hope it does.
I hope so, by golly.
A great sportsman in victory or defeat, Bob Glidden. Butch Leal now and Warren Johnson coming into the staging beams on the starting line to determine the other half of the final pair of Pro Stock Eliminator. Concentration is the key to success. Both drivers in 10 and a red light start for Butch Leal. He tried to gain an advantage at the starting line and failed, disqualifying himself and putting Warren Johnson into the final round against Bruce Allen. Johnson's time, a 7.43 seconds, his speed, 185 miles an hour. As the magnificent snow-capped Mount Rainier looms over Seattle International Raceway, Bruce Allen will have the lane choice over Warren Johnson in the Pro Stock Finals at the Seafair Nationals.
Please.
Back at the Performance Corner Seafair Nationals, I'm Dave McClelland along with Steve Evans, and the burnouts are completed in our first pair of cars in the semi-final round of Top Fuel Eliminator. It will be Dick LaHaye, the underdog, against Frank Cook. Cook with a car that carried Gary Ormsby to the Winter Nationals Championships in 1984 is highly competitive here in 1989. By 100th of a second, he had the quicker time in the semifinals, putting LaHaye in the far lane for the first time today. But obviously, LaHaye doesn't care where he races. A 5.11, 281 miles an hour, and LaHaye moves into the final round, keeping pace in the championship points chase. Joe Amato and Gary Ormsby, our next pair. And this is one of those Top Fuel races that you will wait all season long to see. These two drivers and their crews have performed an incredible amount of work just to be able to race this weekend. Now they're in the semis. Let's go to Steve with Dick LaHaye.
This time of day, a 5.11, that's perfection.
Well, thank you very much, Steve. You know, we hadn't been down that lane, and we tried it yesterday, and it smoked the tires, and we've been making all our runs in the right-hand lane, and Kim made the call on the thing and said we got to get rid of some clutch to go down that lane, and obviously it was the right call.
Final round bound.
Thank the Lord for that.
LaHaye will be interested to find out who his final round opponent will be. Ormsby, the points leader, or Amato, who is currently third in the championship chase. I don't think there is any question at this point about the performance capability of these two cars. The pressure now is on the two drivers. It takes an incredible amount of concentration to perform all the tasks, plus get a good start. And Amato with a big advantage. Joe Amato into the finals in the time of 5.07 and 2.73. Gary Ormsby very late at the start. That 5.07 by Amato compared to the 5.11 by Dick LaHaye gives Joe the lane choice, and both drivers have a chance to pick up some points on Gary Ormsby. Meantime, in the Pro Stock pit area, car co-owner David Rayer adjusting the valves on the big block Chevrolet in the Beretta driven by Bruce Allen. He's sitting inside the car, helping with the between-round maintenance, getting it ready for the finals against Warren Johnson. Let's go to Steve with Joe Amato.
You know, I called Dick LaHaye's 511 perfection. I guess I was wrong. I didn't know a 507 was coming behind him.
All right, lane choice, Steve. That counts. Well, my guys have really been working hard, and they got this car running like a Cadillac, baby.
Lane choice a big deal?
Well, yeah, it definitely always is. You never know what could happen. Somebody could blow up or anything. You know, lane choice and having a car that'll run 507 in this heat, that means a lot.
Go get him.
Meanwhile, back in the funny car pit area, Joe's teammate Bruce Larson working on the supercharger and fuel injection system, getting his car ready for the final round race against Kenny Bernstein. That'll be coming up shortly at the Performance Corner Seafair Nationals.
Kenny Bernstein has 3,000 horses under the hood. And Autolite spark plugs to make sure those horses fly. Kenny's crew chief, Dale Armstrong, always uses Autolite because they're durable and have copper in the seal. Autolite, the only plugs with a 2-year unlimited mileage guarantee. When Kenny's running for a championship, he knows what plugs will get him there.
At Seattle International Raceway, the final preparations being made to Kenny Bernstein's car. He races Bruce Larson in the final round of Funny Car Eliminator. Now on the starting line, you hear the sound of the gasoline-burning engines of Pro Stock Eliminator come to life as the finalists are set. Bruce Allen in the Chevrolet against the Oldsmobile of Warren Johnson. On paper, Bruce Allen has got to be considered the favorite. He has the quicker elapsed time. He has got the lane choice. But Johnson has been driving extremely well at this event and appears to have solved the vibration problem that had been plaguing him throughout this entire season. Allen has selected the lane nearest the camera. The two drivers creeping forward until they are properly positioned right on the starting line of this quarter-mile racetrack. A green light start for both cars. Johnson has a slight advantage. And it is enough to hold off Bruce Allen. Warren Johnson wins his first race of the year. His son Kurt, his wife Arlene, both overjoyed at the victory by Johnson. A 7.41 second elapsed time. His speed 185 miles an hour, and he needed this 0.06 of a second starting line advantage as Bruce Allen ran a quicker elapsed time at 7.39 seconds. But it was that whole shot off the starting line by Johnson that put him ahead from start to finish as WJ takes home the Pro Stock title from the Seafair Nationals. There was the margin of difference at the finish line. Steve?
Well, absolutely. The upset of the day. Warren Johnson, you said earlier, the car has been set up to react quicker. It's a good thing. You ran 41, he ran 39. You won.
Oh, perfect. It's been a long time coming, Steve. It's unbelievable.
Tell me about the race from the starting line on.
Well, we knew that Bruce had the performance advantage. There's been no doubt about that all weekend long, so we just had to go for broke on it. It's basically the same thing Butch did against me, and we won this time.
Indeed you did. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Steve.
The Oldsmobile in the winner's circle. Bruce Allen, well, that's a bitter pill to swallow.
Steve, that's a happy man going over to console Bruce Allen. Warren Johnson wins his first race of the year. Bob Glidden continues to have a massive lead in the Winston chase with Bruce Allen in second. Johnson is third, Larry Morgan fourth, and Butch Leal rounding out the top five. As they wheel Dick LaHaye's car out to head to the staging lanes, we'll be coming back in just a moment with a final round in Funny Car Eliminator, all from Seattle International Raceway and the Seafair Nationals. Back at Seattle International Raceway and the second annual Performance Corner Seafair Nationals, the two cars in our funny car final backing up in their own tracks after the long burnout. This race has a lot more significance than just the championship of the Seafair Nationals. These are the two leaders in the Winston Championship chase. Bruce Larson all season long has been the dominant race car, but gradually through the middle of the season, Kenny Bernstein has been moving up on Larson. That procedure underneath Bruce Larson's car by Maynard Yanks, the crew chief, absolutely normal. Nothing to be concerned about there. Bernstein, with the lane choice, has selected the lane nearest the camera. A great start for Larson. Bernstein tries to close, but cannot do it, and Bruce Larson wins the Seafair Nationals. His elapsed time of 5.40 at 271. Kenny Bernstein even quicker at a 5:37. Watch again in replay and you can see the advantage that Bruce Larson got at the starting line. It is nearly 0.08 of a second. With Bernstein running 0.03 of a second quicker down the quarter mile, the margin on the clock about 0.05 of a second. That computes to a full car length plus.
If one word describes this Bruce Larson victory, I think it's intensity on the part of the crew. And what did you do to psych yourself up to cut a light like that?
I just said it had to be another great day for all these good sponsors and for the crew that worked so hard. The crew's worked awful hard on this three-race swing. I just had to give them something to be proud of.
You know, you won running a little bit slower. That's a driving job.
Yeah, you got to give Kenny a whole shot.
Tell me about the race itself, starting line to finish line.
Well, I never saw him. I knew that I left real good. I staged kind of deep, and I knew it was a good light, and it just felt good the whole way down the track. I never saw him. It's really another great day for Century and Key Parts and Oldsmobile and Kendall. It's terrific.
Indeed. Bruce Larson, they threw everything they had at him.
And Steve, he was more than able to cope. This win gave him just a bit of breathing room over Bernstein in the points chase, some 864 points ahead now for Larson. Oswald in third, Prudhomme is fourth, Ed McCulloch rounds out the top 5 in funny car. Bruce Larson has got to be interested in the outcome of this race. That's his teammate sitting in the near lane of the racetrack as Tim Richards makes the final adjustments on the car for Joe Amato. He will be racing Dick LaHaye. Amato with the choice of lanes. A 5:07 in the semifinals, a 5:11 for LaHaye. That sets the stage for this, the championship of the Seafair Nationals. Just another round in the continuing saga of the battle in top fuel between Dick LaHaye and Joe Amato. Thus far this season, Amato has been the victor. An incredibly close race until the last few hundred feet. Tim Richards reflecting the emotion of the crew as Joe Amato takes the championship. His wife, Jerry, with a smile on her face. 5.01 elapsed time. That is the low ET of this race. And down at the far end of the track, it is Bruce Larson's crew running over to offer their congratulations to Joe Amato. Larson himself over to congratulate his teammate on yet another championship victory. They have done it 3 times this year. First at Columbus, then at Denver, and now here at Seattle. As we look in replay, you can see from the starting line to the finish line, this was Joe Amato's race. He had 0.02 of a second advantage at the starting line, 0.09 of a second over LaHaye in the run down the racetrack. A truly dominating performance.
Well, Joe Amato with this brand new race car serves notice that this points thing is not at all over. He makes up some ground. A 5:01.
No 4, Steve. That's as close as a 4 as you're going to get. Boy, it would have been icing on the cake if we could have run a 4.98 and set the record. But we're happy. We got the win. What can I say? My guys did such a job. I mean, you know, 3 wins in the season of the Keystone team and Century Tax and Gauges and TRW. Maynard Yanks, Tim Richards, and the super crews on both cars. You can't say enough about them 2 teams. I mean, they just kept these cars running, and they've been able to get down the track every run.
Celebrate. I know you know how to do that.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, guys.
Now, that's an obviously elated Joe Amato. He picked up some points on the leaders in the Winston chase. Ormsby continues to lead, followed by LaHaye. Amato is third, Darrell Gwynn fourth, and Eddie Hill is number 5. We hope you've enjoyed truly a great race. For Steve Evans, I'm Dave McClellan, saying so long from Seattle International Raceway. The 1989 NHRA Performance Corner Seafair Nationals has been brought to you by Firestone. Watch it. We're on the move. And by Fram Bendix Autolite, all quality products of Allied Automotive. And by Quaker State Motor Oil. The big Q stands for quality. Always has, always will. Coverage of the NHRA Seafair Nationals has been a presentation of Diamond P Sports.